This is the Art Beauty Podcast, where we are always reaching for truth in beauty. Remember, the brands on the show are not paying to be here, so we get to ask them honest questions because you deserve to be informed so you can make the best choices for yourself. With that, I'm Amber, and today my fabulous co-host is Dr. Dana Stern. She is a board-certified dermatologist and a nail expert, and we are going to drill her, no pun intended today, on all things nail care. This is especially for you out there who love your gels just like I do. You're going to want to listen up. But first of all, thank you so much for being with us today, Dr. Dana.
Thanks so much for that warm intro, Amber. And by the way, right off the cuff, I do not like nail drills. So yes,
Oh,
that was a great way to start and get me a little amped up.
Well, this is good. And why I want to talk to you, I mean, so I think that so many people listen. I've been going to the nail salon since I was, a teenager. And, I used to do the acrylic nail. You're going to cringe now. The acrylic nails and then gels, partially because my hands have to be on camera so much. And so, I've taken them off a couple times. Right now, I'm actually in rehab for my gel nails with just regular polish. But when you take them off, you realize, oh my God,
Yes,
like they look
absolutely.
terrible. So like, what is it about, wearing things like gel or acrylic or even just regular polish that are so damaging to our nails?
So you're absolutely right. Most of the damage from those kind of enhancements, the gels, the acrylics, the dips, comes from actually the removal process. And believe it or not, there are real scientific studies in the literature. One of my nail colleagues did a great study when the soak-off gels were becoming a big thing, where they demonstrated that with ultrasound, actually technology, they used ultrasound to measure the thickness of the nails post-gel, and it turned out that they actually do thin the nail plate. So what we know is, and what you've observed with your own nails, is that if you're somebody who does that kind of process repetitively, as opposed to, the occasional, I'm going to an away wedding or I'm going on vacation, eventually most people will see some signs of damage. And most of that is from the removal. And the removal process can be highly variable depending upon nail technician. Even within a salon, nail techs have different techniques. There's different products. You're not theoretically supposed to mix different components from different products. So that can actually make the product more challenging to remove. And sometimes as a customer, you don't even realize what they're using per se. You're just kind of focused on the color. So removal process for sure, whether they're scraping, drilling, as you mentioned, or long acetone soaks, all of that is going to, with repetition, affect the health of your nails. And I love the fact that you're rehabbing. We can talk about that.
So, on that though, because you mentioned a couple things. So one, you're saying that when you were using different components, that would be your base coat, your color coat, and then your top coat. If they're from different brands, that can sort of be more damaging than if it was all used from the same line.
Yes. And don't forget, this is all product chemistry. So these products are made to work together, and then they have very specific instructions as to how they're supposed to be ideally removed. And these product developers are studying this in detail. They're doing consumer tests where they're testing what's the easiest and least damaging way to remove them. So following the manufacturer's instructions is actually pretty important. So, just like we have to rehab over processed dry hair. I mean, we've all been there, right? Where we've overdone the heat or the dye. We have to do the same for our nails. And the timing of that is going to really depend on the level of damage and kind of what you're doing. If you're doing a, twice a year soak off gel, you're probably not going to need as much TLC as somebody who's constantly taking them on and off.
So before we move on to the rehab part, let's talk about some of these different types of nail things. So when it comes to gel and acrylic, you mentioned at the top of the show you were anti-drill, but I mean that's how I gotta be honest. That's the way that most of the technicians that I've ever been to in many different salons remove it, probably because it's less time consuming for them.
With respect to acrylics, I mean, that's pretty much the norm.
Yeah.
With soak off gels, you can be more patient and let the product kind of dissolve with acetone, which is more ideal. But absolutely, with acrylics, often that's how they're removed. And
Right.
the reason I don't, I end up seeing a lot of damage in my office. The drills can put pressure against the cuticle.
Hmm.
Um, the cuticle directly overlies the nail growth plate, which is the nail matrix. And you can see part of that is the half moon. Usually it's most visible on the thumbnails. And that's actually a delicate kind of membranous structure that is what produces the actual nail. And so if there's a lot of trauma in that area, you're going to end up seeing it as the nail grows out. So that's when, if you've ever seen bumps and surface irregularities and even color irregularity, white patches, and you're saying to yourself, why do my nails look like this? It's from damage to the matrix. And that's usually from aggressive removal of whatever it was that you were wearing on your nails.
For everybody who is listening there, and I want to I'm sure there are some people who never would do gels, right? Who really care about their nails. There are some people who just do that all the time. In fact, I was sitting with somebody telling them I'm rehabbing, and she's like, "Why? When you throw the gel on, you're not going to see underneath anyway." And I was like, "Yeah, but there's got to be some long-term effects there." So on that, for people who just continuously do it and do it and do it, are there things that can happen long term?
So I'm really glad you mentioned that. I just want to, as an aside, mention that a lot that is what I call cosmetic camouflage.
Yeah.
And that's just, hide the issue, cover it up and move on. And since I'm a doctor, I just want to throw this in. It is very important for you to occasionally see your nails. And it is very important for your physician to see your nails because your nails are a big part of your health. And so for that person you're referring to who never has kind of naked bare nails, God forbid there's something serious going on those nails or reflective of an internal issue. So this is just a little my kind of medical interjection here that when you go for your annual skin check, take off all your nail polish, take off your gels, and make sure that your physician can properly examine your nails. I had a patient I trained at Mount Sinai, and I will never forget, I had a young woman who was covering up a melanoma because it was ugly with acrylics. So that's just a little aside. We'll get back to your.
That's like very Dr. House, though, right? I mean, I feel like those episodes where he'd be like, they couldn't figure out what was wrong. And then he's like, look between the toes or look on the nails, look under the acrylics. That's important, though. That's why we interview experts like you and something to be thinking about when you go for your yearly checkup to make sure that they can look at your nails. I know I just went for my dermatologist, my skin check.
Oh, good for you.
I had my toenails looked horrific because I finally took the polish off them every like September to till sandal season. I take them off, but boy, do they look terrible. And I don't do gels on them, just regular. But they're kind of in a state of rehab. And as embarrassed as I was, and I said, please don't look. I mean, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, but great that you didn't have polish on and great that you went for a skin check.
Yeah. So, in terms of like that long-term damage, are there things, we've covered the fact that you could be hiding something that's really even potentially more harmful related to your health. But in terms of the nail health, is that repeated, trauma and damage? Are there long-term effects? Like could our nails fall off?
It's not necessarily. And there
Okay.
are a lot of people who can tolerate the gels and the acrylics unbelievably, surprisingly so. I always, my take home on that is that if you don't have pain and your nails look okay, I mean, you would know if they were extremely damaged.
Yeah.
then yes, you can enjoy, continuing on with that routine. But what commonly happens with repetitive drilling and constant application, removal, no break, no rehab as you're doing, is I often have patients who will start developing pain because their nail plates have been overly thinned.
Yeah.
Because what they do is they rough them up. That's what the term is,
Yeah.
by
Yeah.
kind of like buffing with a very abrasive buffer, which is really designed for acrylic nails. And that can thin the nail plate. And your nail beds are loaded with nerves.
Yeah.
And so if the the nail actually has a function, it's not just, a canvas, really. I mean, as great as it is as a canvas, it's an amazing form of self-expression. Your nails have a function. They help you with fine motor dexterity, with picking up fine objects. They protect the tips of the digits. And in protecting those digits, those nerve endings, which are loaded at the fingertips, become really sensitive if that protective armor becomes too thin. So that's a common thing if you're overdoing it.
Right.
But it's not necessarily going to happen just because you're kind of like, an acrylic lover.
Now, we mentioned before, like with the acrylic versus the gel. With the acrylic, there is some soak off, but the drill is kind of the go-to. Do you prefer like a long soak off for gel nails? Like, is it better to sit with your hands in that acetone rather than have them like kind of take the drill to it first and then soak them less?
I'm hesitant to answer that question because it's kind of like, what's the lesser of two evils? The acetone is kind of like a temporary evil. It's going to dry out your cuticles. It's going to dry out your skin. It's going to certainly dry out your nails. Eventually, with a break and hydration, you're going to be fine.
Right.
The drill can induce some more long-term permanent damage if they're really aggressively kind of hitting against that cuticle. So in theory, the drill could do more damage. But again, it really comes down to the skill of the nail tech. And also, we should mention that all of these things are now being done at home.
Yeah.
And so it's interestingly, I've been starting to see reports even in the medical literature of complications that are commonly happening with the home acrylic user. And if you think about it, it really does require a lot of skill, a lot of precision. It's obviously hard to do with your non-dominant hand. So I prefer to leave things to the professionals. I believe in expertise. And I think that unless you're really confident that you can apply something like an acrylic, because the acrylics have potential for allergy if, the acrylates, the liquid is getting on your skin.
Yeah.
So I really encourage people to stick to the professionals, particularly with acrylics.
Sure. Acrylics, gels, go to the professionals. Your at-home polish, if you need to do it, right? We can do that at home.
For sure.
We started to talk about rehab, and I do want to talk because I have one of your OG kits, and we will get to that because like I said, I will tell you all about that coming up. But I'm almost embarrassed to say when I told you I'm rehabbing my nails, I took off the gel, but then I put on regular polish. So I mean,
that's okay. We're gonna convert you to the nail renewal system.
Which is good. The problem is that they are so damaged underneath. And like I said, my hands are on camera so much. So for me, it's a really challenging.
Right.
It's just challenging. It's
you
part
just
of my
don't have
job.
those windows of time when you can. Right.
Right. So what is, for the person out there who might be listening, who has been, cosmetically camouflaging and just repeating gel, what is like, is there kind of like a rule of thumb or a general, like every other gel, give it off, or every 2 times you do gel, try to go to a regular manicure?
Again, that's going to depend on what your nails look like when you take off the gels.
Okay.
It's remarkable how I have had patients who just tolerate them. And I would say I could examine their nails and think that they're just using regular polish because they just don't have that much damage. But in general, you need to take care of your nail canvas if you want to maximize all of that, what I call that fun stuff. And so, you know, be it every 2 weeks, be it once a month. Perhaps, you know, you're just taking a break like you are because it's no longer sandal season, boo-hoo, with your toenails. Perhaps you know that you're getting ready to travel and you know that you're going to want to put on a gel. So maybe I'll rehab for 2 or 3 weeks. But, you know, I do want to emphasize, and thank you for mentioning our OG nail renewal system. One of the things I love about the nail renewal system, which I'll happy to jump into, is that it is going to rehab your nails, but it's also going to leave them looking like a clear coat of polish. So it's not just that you're going plain and boring and, you know, you're just kind of like, it's going to leave your nails looking lustrous and healthy and shiny. There's no dry time. You don't have to remove it. So you're beautifying and treating at the same time, which is one of like the reasons it's such a great product.
You know, okay, so let's get into it because this came across my desk, and like I said, I have not. I'm not at a position right now to go totally rehab on my fingernails, but my toes, I took off the polish and they looked horrific, and it was just regular polish that I was doing.
That's common. Yep.
They were chipping, and I actually thought when they removed it, the nail almost looked red, and I thought maybe I left on that pink nail polish too much. It turns out that it's not. The nail was so thin at one part that you could see a little bit of like a pinker tone.
Oh,
yikes.
Sorry.
Yikes. So what I did is I waited a couple weeks and then I bust out the Dr. Dana nail system, which we're going to talk about. And let me tell you, I was kind of like, all right, let's see. Is this really going to make a difference? I was blown away. Now, I believe I took a before picture, and I feel like now there's been like about a month or so of me using this. Maybe it's like a month and a half now. So I will maybe post a before and after picture of this, because I do think that when you see
Fabulous.
What they look like before, and even with the damage, boy, did they look insane. So let's talk about this kit, because this is actually a 3-step kit. I know you have rebranded. So if you see online, there is a newer, fancier, more updated kit.
Yes. Well,
but
you know,
is it still 3 steps?
Yes, it is. Okay. And we scaled back a little bit on the packaging because I'm super environmentally conscious. So it's 3 steps. This is our new package. The only difference really from, oh, sorry, I'm holding up the wrong box. Here we go. The only difference from your perspective is that the step 3 is now a tube applicator instead of a pen. We had some problems with the applicator, and we were listening really hard to our customers. And so we updated the 3rd step, which is the hydrating and strengthening step. So super easy. It's a once a week, 3-step nail treatment system that you're going to be able to treat 10 nails, fingernails, or toenails. I'm so glad you mentioned your toenails, because we often just forget about toenails, and we're both in New York, and like we have such a short sandal season.
Yeah.
And I will actually tell you that we see a tremendous amount of damage from just basic polish on toenails. So you're not alone, and that's not uncommon. So the first 2 steps are our exfoliation steps, and you heard that right. People are just kind of blown away when I talk about exfoliation with respect to nails, because it's really a new concept in nails, but it comes from real science. There were studies coming out of India that I read years and years ago showing that glycolic acid, which we all know and love from skincare, it's our favorite alpha hydroxy acid, can rejuvenate dry, damaged, over-processed nails. And so I started experimenting with it. We all have glycolic acid in our offices. And the reason this works, Amber, is because the nails, if you were to look at them under the microscope, the cells are dead, stacked layers of cells, similar to the stratum corneum of our skin. We remove those dead cells so that we can get our effective serums and hydration into our skin. We all understand that concept very well in skincare, and this is translating it to the nail. And so what you're going to see after you finish the first 2 exfoliation steps is your nails are going to literally be glowing like they've never glowed before.
Yes.
And you can't get that with just a plain buffer, because you really need that chemical exfoliator. Importantly, it's also going to allow you to get what I call the good stuff to where it has to go. And that's the 3rd step. So this is all like very familiar if you think about it in relation to skincare. Our 3rd step has a natural nail strengthener. It's plant-based. It's called pistacia. It's this incredible ingredient that comes from an evergreen tree that grows in the Mediterranean. And you just apply a super generous amount to the nail and surrounding skin. And this is designed to be used on the go. I know that, Amber, you and I are super duper multitasking, working gals. And this is something you can do, on a plane, on a train.
I just did it. No, I mean, I've got so I want to be completely honest, right? Because you and I are both QVC gals, as well. I loved this because I always, again, when your hands are on camera, if you're ever shooting something with your hands, my biggest trick to everybody is take 30 seconds in every single makeup kit I have, I've got cuticle oil. Because if you just put that on a second before you shoot, your nails are going to look, even if your nails look terrible and you haven't had them polished or they're grown out, they're going to look so much better if you just throw on a little cuticle oil. That said, cuticle oil it can leak. It's kind of a pain in the butt to do. I loved this because it was like in a brush, 1, 2, 3. But I guess there's even an improved version of this because you could throw this anywhere.
It is improved. It's just easier to get out, and it's the same mess-free concept for those of us who are just
a gel form. See, it's not, you can see it kind of, it goes on like almost like a jet, like a thicker, it's not like a thin cuticle oil, but then it kind of dissolves into that.
Exactly. It's like a gel oil. So
yeah,
we used to actually call it a joil.
A joil. I like it. I like it a lot.
Yeah. So, I mean, because look, we need to type, we need to, be on our phones, unfortunately, constantly. And so this is a realistic way to do your nails. They're going to be glossy and shiny. And again, you don't have any dry time. It's never going to chip. There's nothing worse than a chip manicure. And when you do resume, importantly, polish, gels, acrylics, you've brought your canvas back to shape. I always tell my patients, your nails are really like a canvas, and you're painting on something that has ridges and peeling, and it's just not going to work. So really, really great.
So, when we talk about this and when people hear this, and I feel like it's the same thing with hair, right? If your hair is damaged, you can have products that are going to help restore it, but really you can't undamage. It it has to grow out if it's severely damaged. If your nails are severely damaged with, by doing gel or that removal process, or if you've done acrylics, while this system will help to rehab them, will help get them in better shape, will help them look better. I mean, at the end of the day, it is kind of a waiting game, right? To have them back to their full.
It actually, believe it or not, depends. So if you have significant, for example, kind of depressions in the nail plate where the nail actually has dents in it that are close to the cuticle, then yes, those are going to slowly have to grow out. But if you have surface discoloration, you have peeling, you even have ridges, you are going to see an improvement with the nail renewal system. We've done a lot of consumer perception studies, and it really improves much faster than you would think. So depends on the level of damage, but you don't have to wait months and months. Get started on treating it, and you're going to be really surprised.
So if people want to come to you, we were talking today more about the cosmetic side of this, but I know you treat a number of serious nail conditions. If people want to come and visit you, where are you located?
So I practice in 2 locations. My New York City office is at 905 Fifth Avenue, 72nd Street. I've been there forever, and my practice there is 100% devoted to nails. And then I'm also out in Southampton, in the Hamptons. And so the other thing is I do a tremendous amount of virtual teledermatology. So I'm pretty accessible, love to help you with your nail issues.
And people can find you at drdanastern.com.
That's our branded website.
And where can they pick up these nail renewal systems?
So the product can be found at drdananails.com. So it's drdananails.com.
Okay, great. And then, I do want to thank you so much for being on here. Before I let you go though, as a New Yorker yourself, like, are there salons in the city that you want to give a shout out because you feel like they do the renewal or the removal great?
Well, we actually just had a great event at Jin Soon, and I think she's incredible and a super smart lady. So I want to give a shout out to Jin Soon Salon. They have great techs, beautiful salon. Her husband's adorable. So shout out to them.
And then do you do gels ever, or are you like, no?
Someone just asked me that the other day. I have had 2 soak off gels in my life.
Oh my God.
The first, of course, I like to try things. If I'm going to be, lecturing about the first one, believe it or not, was in South Korea, where, that technique was largely innovated. And I loved it. I was traveling. I was actually promoting the product all over Asia, and they did a whole press thing. They thought it was really funny that I was getting a gel manicure. But it ended up being so great to just have this fabulous manicure while I was running around, packing and unpacking, nothing chipped. And
instantly dry.
Yes, it was really, I see the appeal 100%. And it was interesting when I removed it, I really had almost no damage.
Yeah.
Cannot explain why. But then I had one done in New York, and when I removed that one, my nails were completely trashed. I was like, oh, this is so embarrassing. What have I done?
Yeah. So you're like, never again. Well, listen, everybody, you have heard it here. I created this podcast. I'm never going to tell you what you should do, what you shouldn't do, but at least here I'm hoping to give you some options for those of you who are serial gel manicurists. Maybe give them a little bit of a break. And again, if you're looking just to improve, I think that what I will do right now is shoot something of my toes in their current state and just put it up on social because I love you. So you can see I'm going to do this treatment because it only takes 5 minutes.
Thank you.
So I'll do it right now. So after this, the week that this is airing, I'm putting my toes up there for everybody to see. You heard it here first.
Love it. Love it.
Thank you so much for being on with us today, Dr. Dana. If you have questions,
my pleasure.
If you have questions you want me to pass along to her or her team, I'm always happy to do so. You can email me at hello@artbeautypodcast.com. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Art Beauty Podcast. And as always, we will see you next Tuesday, hopefully with a little bit better nails. Bye.